tell you why I sued the government, but first some necessary background. My beloved late spouse, Thea Spyer, and I lived together and loved each other for more than 4 decades, in sickness and in health, truly in love and joy until death did us part. We were introduced in 1963 at the Portofino restaurant in Greenwich Village. And though we danced together that night and met at many parties later and danced always, it was about 2 years later, on Memorial Day 1965, that we began dating. And we became engaged with a circular diamond brooch in 1967. I did that because I was working at IBM before it was such a liberal place about gay people. And I couldn't wear an engagement ring because people would want to know who he is and, and things like that. Okay. Anyhow, we stayed engaged for 40 years. We lived through many carefree years, each with jobs that we loved. I as a senior systems programmer at IBM, Thea as a clinical psychologist. We had great friends, and we partied, and we traveled and danced. Oh, we danced. And we lived through the vicissitudes of aging and illness. In 1977, Thea was diagnosed with progressive MS. The first symptom was a sudden inability to complete her Gulf swing. From one cane, then 2 crutches, manual wheelchair, in our later years, quadriplegia. But she never lost brain power or speech or her brilliant personality. Piloting her motorized wheelchair and her computer with her remaining left hand, she continued to work with patients. In 1966, I had emergency coronary bypass surgery. In 2002, Thea was diagnosed with aortic stenosis, which became increasingly severe. And still we remained strong and joyous in our life and love, and still we danced. We became domestic partners the first day it was offered, certificate number 80, and we hoped to be married in the United States. But Thea had a lousy prognosis, 1 year to live max. So we realized we couldn't wait, and we were married May 22nd, 2007 in Toronto by Mr. Justice Harvey Brownstone, who presides at Ontario Family Court, thus ending our 40-year engagement. In 42 years of living together and loving each other, we never thought of ourselves as single. So what could be different? It turns out marriage could be different. It didn't occur to us that people would see us differently as a legally married couple. But they did. When our wedding announcement ran in the New York Times, we heard from literally hundreds of people from every phase of our lives. And I mean playmates and schoolmates, colleagues, friends, and relatives pouring out loving congratulations because we were married. The histories of Thea's and my 4 decades love affair and the LGBT times in which we lived are meticulously and lovingly documented in the multi-award-winning film, Edie and Thea, A Very Long Engagement, produced and directed by Greta Olofsdottir and Susan Mosca. When my beautiful, sparkling Thea died in February 2009, I was overcome with grief. Within a month, I was hospitalized with a heart attack, characterized as broken heart syndrome. Subsequent in-hospital complications left me very fragile. Grieving and ill, I had to contend with the immediate effects of that cruelly misnamed Defense of Marriage Act known as DOMA. Although New York State considered us married, the federal government did not. So the government taxed what I inherited from Thea as though we were strangers rather than spouses. I paid $363,000 in federal estate tax, known to some of us as the gay tax. I'm 83 years old and live on a fixed income, and paying that tax was not easy. Overwhelmed by my sense of injustice and unfairness, I decided to enter a lawsuit against the government, seeking to get my money back because DOMA is unconstitutional. I lucked out when I found Robbie Kaplan, a litigation partner at Paul Weiss, who stepped up to support my case. She then introduced me to James Essex of ACLU, who joined us. These two, Robbie and James, lead a legal dream team. As some of you already know, President Obama and the Justice Department agreed that DOMA is unconstitutional and reported to the court that they would no longer defend DOMA. But the House of Representatives is defending, but they lost. My immediate reaction to the news was to call Thea to tell her. Obviously, I'm thrilled with the judge's decision. And when I think about what federal recognition of marriage by same-sex couples would mean, I think it would mean justice and fairness instead of the inherent injustice of a law that treats married people as though they were legal strangers to each other. DOMA, that misnamed Defense of Marriage Act, excludes GLBT couples from fully participating in marriage, and that's unfair. And it excludes GLBT couples from the ability to protect their spouse when one of them dies, and that is unfair. So we persist, and we will persist now. I wanted to add something, though. I've been approached at conferences and fundraisers and on the street by people young and old who thank me for what I'm doing for them and quote, for all of us. I felt elated, and suddenly I felt important to this LGBT community that brought me out and nourished me, and I felt solemn. I thought what might happen if we win. I thought about the beginning of legal recognition of our marriages and about those over 1,000 rights, privileges, protections, and responsibilities. I thought about teenagers falling in love for the first time and knowing they could marry someday, feeling not excluded and denigrated by their government. I thought about the children of GLBT couples no longer having to defend the legitimacy of their families. And I thought about the beginning of the end of stigma and ultimately the end of abuse and bashing and of internalized homophobia in closets and lying about who we are and of suicides, and mostly about hope for our lives in the open. Thank you all for hearing my story. And of course, I'm just delighted and elated with the decision today. So, thank you.